It was basically just an idea of coming together and talking about this book that I saw. Actually, I'm going to be honest. I first found out about David Barton from Stephen Crowder. He was doing. Have you seen those on Crowder?
I've not exactly, not pre-recorded. So
Yeah,
it's already been recorded. So
yeah, it's on YouTube. It's he does he calls it a master class, and he basically goes to David Barton's museum in Alito. The man lives in Alito, people, and I'm in Texas, and I haven't seen him. Have you?
no.
I know, right? I would have no clue to even think that he was even in Texas, except that Stephen Crowder went and saw him at his museum, and I liked what he had to say. He had and so when I was going, he was going through things about the Second Amendment. He was going through things about the founding fathers, and he was going through Black history. And then I was like, well, who is this fool? Man, I've never heard of him before. And he gave his pedigree about going into, arguing in front of the Supreme Court, being in front, helping draft laws, and being involved in think tanks, and now running a museum full of all this historical nonsense. Not nonsense, lack thereof. Right? And so I got his book. You got to go through and see. The Jefferson Lies
Oh.
by DB. But also what kind of put me in mind for me. I don't know. You can talk about it. What put me in is thinking about him as a wall builders. I had no idea how this guy who was trying to talk about bringing people together was going to also be called wall builders. It seemed like a contradiction to me.
For sure.
So
It is, sort of.
yeah. So I looked it up. Have you looked it up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nehemiah
Yeah, and
in the Holy Bible.
that's the one.
The greatest book I've ever read.
That's the same one, I think.
I think I've read it.
All right. No, I meant the Nehemiah. Because to be honest,
Yes.
I just went to his talking points. Yeah. Well, this is straight up from the Wall Builders website.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I mean, if you want, so basically, what I'm trying to say is, I looked him up. I saw some of the things he said. Stayed for a while, liked it, and tried to figure out what the hell this dude and where his information was coming from.
Yep.
Because I got to be honest, man. And I want to ask you about this real quick. What were some of your preconceived notions about Jefferson?
Oh gosh. That he was a racist, that he owned slaves, that he wrote a Bible.
All right.
He wrote his own Bible,
I was, man, seriously, from a very early age, I thought to myself that of all the founding fathers, Jefferson was the one that I disliked the most, had the least amount of respect for. And for me, basically, it was because of his, how often, to be honest, liberals and leftists were using his words to justify what they were doing. Whether it be, the separation of church and state, which was a huge one for me. In his fundamental Declaration of Human Rights, and his him being a deist, apparently. It's funny. David Barton talks about this. Like all the founding fathers, everyone usually only can talk about Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, which were the two least religious founding fathers. So they use them as a analog for the rest of them. So these two founding fathers were influential founding fathers were deists, and so the rest of them were too. And so that country was founded on deism or secularism, And so again, I was like, well, if that's the case, because I believed it, why wouldn't you believe it? Screw you, TJ. What about you?
So David Barton, that name I learned from some men in my life who are in leadership, that are actually associated with Rick Green, David, and Tim Barton. So I had that connection there.
You know a guy who knows a guy?
I know a guy who knows a guy.
Lucky.
In fact, some guys within our group.
I'm a fan, DB, if you don't know that.
Some guys in our group, when they reach a certain level of leadership in business, they're invited out to wall builders. So they actually go out. Yeah, he's got a museum. He's got I've never been. I haven't been able to qualify just yet, but it's not. I don't think it's something they do every year. But
We should just go anyway.
no, that's true. I don't think it's closed. You may not get the.
It is closed now. I called. It's not going to be open until everyone's opened again. I think that's what they said. Have you heard any of the backlash about David Barton? Let me look some things up because there's this one YouTube video. It was this woman, and she was a professor, I think, an associate professor, and she was sitting there smoking because she was so upset. She was smoking, reading David Barton, the book, and like, oh, this is all lies. Oh, this is terrible. This isn't true.
And I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to put absolutely no preparation whatsoever into this video. I'm going to take Barton's new book. I'm going to take my book, Life for Jesus, Volume 1.
But she never talked about what wasn't true. She just said her opinion that it wasn't true.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about?
So you could say anything, but where are the facts? That's always been when when you start being challenged what you've always thought to be true, when you start revealing some things in your life that aren't actually true, but you believe that they were true, it begs the question, what else do I know to be true that's actually not true?
No
and a lot of people can't handle that, so they ball up, wall up, block up, and next thing you know, they're confronted with truth being offensive by nature. We know this from the Word, right?
Yeah.
And so they become offended because it's truth. They don't want to receive it. So they believe because it does this ping pong in your brain, messes it up because you can't get past the way you're feeling. You can't seem to really back it up with any hard evidence. And as I was reading the book, there's footnotes on just about every sentence. So if you have any question to the authenticity, I did. That's why I'm only 90 pages into
I know,
it.
right?
I mean, I'll be just quite honest with you. I fact checked almost every sentence because I want to know what the source is. Where did it come from? How far does that go back? Where's the chain of custody, right?
Mm-hmm. For
that factual historical evidence. And when you hear the left, look, call them what you want. I have names, but
right.
I'll play nice. Don't throw stones, okay? For now. But you have the other side and the other school of thought, and in one of the stories he fathered Sally Hemings' children.
Yeah.
Okay, come on now. So it'd be like, hey, Greg, I went on deployment. My wife's pregnant, and you did it. You're like, bro, I'm your friend, man. I'm your friend. Wasn't me.
That one, save that one, because let's dive into that when we get to that chapter. Because that's something that...
I saw the list.
But... I was reading up on it a little bit, too, and I saw that, and it said that not only did that... He talked about that, but then I went on to Monticello, the Jefferson... The people...
Monticello?
Yeah.
I've been saying Monticello.
Oh.
I've been saying it wrong the whole time.
That's fine. Monticello. Well, yeah, so I call it, which is a historical society dedicated to the preservation of Thomas Jefferson and his work, and his body of work. They are the historians of record for Thomas Jefferson, and they say that they went with it. And so I planned, but not today. We're going to get into something different because here's a Southern Poverty Law Center, and I know they're so unbiased. They're the standard.
Of course.
The golden standard.
Because the experts say that, right?
Yeah, well, they said, it's funny to put in quotes because they say here on David Barton, named by Time in 2005 as one of the nation's 25 most influential evangelicals.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yep.
David Barton is a self-styled historian, a self-styled one, who has acted as a key bridge between the mainstream political right and radical right religious ideology. That's what the Southern Poverty Law. Yep. They said David Barton's ascendant star as a self-taught historian and influential leader of the evangelical far right crashed in a storm of ridicule when the world's largest Christian publisher recalled Barton's 2012 book, The Jefferson Lies, for too many serious whoppers. Yeah, right?
That's insane because I'm 90 pages into it because every sentence has a reference.
I know, right?
And that reference has a reference, and that reference, it's a spider hole of historical fact check that.
And this is what they do, man. They don't tell you what he is wrong about. They don't tell you
that he's wrong.
Just wrong. He's lying. And so they come with authority, like the woman who was smoking. I'm an associate professor at who cares where university.
Exactly.
And so I said he lies. You can just go with that. You know, I don't need to tell you how or when or why, but he did. He goes on.
If I'm an expert because I say I'm an expert and I'm smoking my cigarette, I'm so fired up because I don't even know why I'm fired up because my world's being challenged right now.
Yeah, right.
Right. So now I'm just angry because I have a feeling that the world's told me these lies that aren't actually true. So now I'm upset. I can't deal with that, man. That's too much.
Right.
So I'm an expert and I'm going to say in my position, and because I say that I'm an expert, it's wrong. Well, I'm an oak tree, so call me an oak tree.
Right. You are an oak. You
Big oak.
cannot be moved. They go on to say on the Southern Poverty Law Center that the kind of gross factual mistakes that are a death knell for any real historian. A prolific propagandist, Barton has long promoted the canard that our founding fathers never intended the separation of church and state, but rather sought to construct a Christian nation. Well, that's Southern Poverty Law Center for you, and that's actually why they went against the book. It's not because it's factually wrong; it's because it champions a cause that goes against their narrative. That's the thing, man. Like, seriously, David Barton doesn't have an opinion, really. He's just going off what his records, and he's got hundreds of thousands of...
There's the difference between forming an opinion based on fact and just having an opinion, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Well, here's look at this one, man. Let me give it to you on your screen.
Sure.
Of course, it's from Vox, so what do we expect from them? But I mean, understanding the fake historian behind America's religious right. That's their headline. Of course, it's Vox, so they're completely dishonest. But
yeah, and now you have character assassination.
Oh, he's done been assassinated
through words.
But it's for the truth. I've seen the letters that they talk about with Thomas Jefferson, and if people love to quote him out of context, and then when you read the full scope of the, for instance, there's a letter in there that talks about Thomas Jefferson was advising a young scholar. I forget who it was, but it's in the book. Anyway, he's advising a young scholar.
What, a relative or?
I think it was
like his nephew.
And, yeah, I think it was
Andrew
his
or
nephew.
something?
And he wanted to tell him to have an open mind, always be smart, always be careful. And he said you got to consider Christianity from an objective perspective.
Yeah.
So people take that out of context,
They
saying,
do.
"See, he was saying you can't be for Christianity. You got to look at it hard."
No, right.
But he had both sides of that.
Yeah. I mean,
but right
doesn't
after
get
that,
more logical than that.
Yeah, right. And then, but right after that, he went to Congress to go to church. That's where everyone in all the DC leadership went to on Sundays. They went inside the Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber of Congress, and had church. So if he really wanted a separation of church and state, and then David Barton makes this exact argument, then why didn't he separate church and state? And we'll get to that eventually. But yeah, it's just little things like that. And of course, this article, it's Vox. So you know it sucks. But I mean, they're not gonna give him a fair shake at all. And so that's the kind of thing we're dealing with, man. It's yeah. And so they're like, and I've seen, whether it be the professor, whether it be Vox, whether it be the Southern Poverty Law Center, they're not going to tell you why, how, or where. They're just going to tell you that it is, and you better, if you don't, it's because you're a racist, probably.
What better way to bring down a nation than to get its people to hate it?
Yeah, to despise it. You know, Ben Shapiro was talking about that. 3 easy ways to destroy your country. His new book.
Yeah,
that's like way number one.
Three or 5?
It's a number for sure.
It's a
number.
Ben
I'm
said
very
it, so
secure.
write it down. I'm pretty sure
one
it's
of those
on good
numbers.
authority.
I think it's number 3. That's why I'm confused. It must be number 3. Yeah, it just came out. I haven't read it yet, but he talked about it on his podcast, and it's that's one of the ways.
Yeah.
Destroy the history.
Well, yeah, and then I think the other ways, I feel like I mean, it's just my opinion, but
Talk to me, man.
money, control the money, the debt, get people relying on government.
Oh, that's for sure. That's out of the Saul Alinsky playbook.
Yeah, the stimulus. That's just love us. Just love us because you will depend on us.
That one was hard. Talk about that real quick.
I'll talk about it. Hey, Greg, give me $1,200. Say okay.
Of course, man.
Sweet, dude.
You're my
Sweet.
bro.
Hey, Greg. I love you so much. I know you're going through some hard times. I want to bless you with this $1,200. I'm going to get all the credit for it, though, because you didn't really give it to me.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you're going to tax me, take my money, and then
give it
away
back to you.
and say how virtuous you are.
How exactly?
Well, I don't think I like that very much.
Oh, well,
I know, right?
you just woke up. Hello.
You red pilled me on the spot.
You have been plucked out of Greg. You've been plucked out of the Matrix ever since I've known you.
I know, right? Render unto Caesar, though, right?
Well, sure,
Mm.
yeah, but the law of the land is the Constitution, and Constitution. Now we can get a little religious here, but this is gonna blow up. But that's the divine nature. Here's you're free. Here's freedom.
You know, I was talking to Michael, my son, about this, and waited to we have a kitty. We have a sweet, precious little kitty.
Sasha would love that.
All right, and the thing is that when you go and you grab Kitty and Kitty don't like it, he feels threatened. Kitty's got claws, and Kitty will defend himself.
That's right.
Against all threats because that's natural, and so Kitty will also defend his territory. You know, and try to hurt Kitty, try to hurt Kitty's babies, you try to take Kitty's food and trespass on his territory. Kitty's gonna respond.
That's right.
Right? And so naturally, that's all animals will. And so when I try to teach him what's natural for Kitty to do, he understands it completely. Like natural law makes sense because that's what God implanted upon our hearts when He first brought us into the world with morality. You know,
Right.
that's how come you can have everyone across the nations throughout time knew certain things were wrong,
Right.
and certain things weren't.
So at some point you have to figure out what's the line for me. You know, you render under Caesar's, sure, but what if Caesar's asking you to render your firstborn? At what point do you say, that ain't how God wanted it? There's no way. I couldn't do that. And he's coming in, and he's taking your wives and your children. I mean, this is an extreme, but
Sure.
hey, what if Caesar is an extreme? Like that never happened in the history of ever, right? So then you're like, well, there's a law of the land and there's a law of God. And sometimes those don't obviously coexist in the same, they do in the same reality, but not in the same consequences of reality, right? Turn your back on God. And as a believer, you know what that means. But
So yeah, that's an interesting subject, and it is curious because at what point does let me look it up real quick. Romans obey.
and if the Constitution is God's law in this land, how much freedom am I willing to give up before I fight back? Conservatives don't fight. That's why you don't hear the conservatives. Now we have David Barton, but the conservatism isn't a political ideology. Well, that may not entirely be true, but to me it's just a state of being. Like it's rooted in truth, and as a believer, that truth being freedom in God. And so if we are
Well,
truly
that's key, man. I mean, how will we ever? And this is a sad statement, I think, but how can we ever come back together with those when the key difference between us is our belief in God, when that informs everything else, and they don't, and so that informs everything else, and those are very divergent. Once that key component is gone, well, it kind of opens up the door for people. Talk about Christians being terrible people because they need a God to keep them in line, but no, man, we just understand how evil our hearts are. Like, I understand that if I didn't have God and I didn't know there's accountability for all the evil in my heart, man, I would be a hater. But I might not be because then the devil's already got me, you know? The enemy's already got me, so why would he bother peppering me with hate? But
it's money. I mean, that's logical too.
yeah, right?
It's you know. Yeah.
So how does that go with Romans 13?
I don't know what the Romans 13 says.
Let me bust it out right quick.
break that
Romans
bad boy out.
13. This is a hard one, man. All of you must obey those who rule over you. There are no authorities except the ones God has chosen. Those now rule have been chosen by God. So whoever opposes the authorities opposes leaders whom God has appointed.
So the law of the land is okay. The law of God isn't the law of the land. So if leadership comes in and says, we are now making it a law that your firstborn must be killed. You know, at what point does forcing a mask lead down the logical path of all the other freedoms? Some people say it's just a mask, but every law ends in your death. Just a mask, here's a $1,000 fine. You don't have to wear the mask, but here's another fine. I'm not paying the fine. We're going to go to court. I'm not going to court. Well, contempt of court or whatever charges are going to trump up next. It goes down and goes down. How long do you have to flee before the law takes your life. That's why it's important to vote, because these laws is just a mass lead. It
It is
inevitably
important,
can lead to, and we have examples in the world where they're, China, North Korea. I don't want to live like that. I won't. I didn't fight for that. I don't, I'm going to get into details about things that I go through, but there's an obstacle. There's a huge mountain every day that I climb because of the service that I sacrifice for all of our freedoms. I don't want to give that away without a fight. Some people don't have the value, so they don't get mad. They believe what's being told to them. And then you have this gentleman here, Barton, he's coming in. He's just, hey, here's the truth. It's true, not because I said it. It's true because you can follow
That's reality.
that chain of custody. It's true. Exactly. It's true because it's reality. I'm thankful that I received the truth, because that makes me really, really happy and even more passionately, righteously angered when someone violates my freedom. When someone says, "Hey, we want money because we were slaves." Like, how far back do you go? What if you're mixed? There's so many more questions than that. And what did I do wrong? Because I'm white privilege, white guilt, call it what you want. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything to you. In fact, we did what we did in the military for you. And so to say that I owe you an apology because of the color of my skin, you're out of your mind, man. I'm now getting a little fired up, so I'm gonna take a break.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not playing devil's advocate. I'm just talking about when I read Romans 13, it's confusing because obviously there's a clear delineation between obeying God's law and obeying man's law. For instance, it was against the law for Jesus and his disciples to go pick grain and to not obey the Sabbath, right? And they broke that because that was a God's law issue, right? And then, but then I think about the church, how it was persecuted, like violently persecuted during Paul's time when Paul was writing that letter. We're talking fed to the lions. We're talking human torches, and they wanted to revolt. Like the Christians wanted to come together as a political group and fight back. And Paul was like, "No, you cannot." And so I think, how bad is not revolting again? Because can you imagine if Trump grabs people up and put them in a lion's den? There would be war.
Valid point.
There would be
That's
war.
an extremely valid point.
So it's very confusing, So the only thing I can think of is when there's a clear violation. And I tell you what, man, the government telling you when you can and can't worship, that's a violation of God's law.
Perfect. So the question becomes, what do we agree to be what God's law is?
Yeah.
So that's the question.
Wherever there's clear biblical...
Absolutely. If there's
precedent,
biblical... Absolutely. You can make inference all day long, but that's what the other side's doing. That's infer without fact. Now, let's infer with fact, and I can back it up in the scripture. And then it becomes...
Like David Barton does?
That's exactly right.
So it all comes back, doesn't it, brother? All right. Dude, that's what I'm fucking talking about. That was a good fucking little discussion, man. I really appreciate you. I'm going to cut this part out.
Okay.
This is you and me talking. I really appreciate it, man. But there's something I got to... Man. You good? You feel good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel good
I'm
too.
on a roll.
Yeah. We can keep talking, of course.
Because where do you actually get to talk about stuff like this? Who wants to... I'm saying conservatives don't fight. They're conservative because they believe that they know the truth. They know the truth. But they're not willing to stand up and fight for the truth. That's why guys like David Barton, and I could laundry list 200 men right now that I know that are in the fight, that are perfectly aligned, like that group that I'm partnered with for another day. They know. They donate money to Patriot Academy, Rick Green, Constitutional Defenders. Like, they're all connected because it's connected into that blasted truth. And it just reconfirms to me that no matter where we're going, we need a team. We do need a body of believers. Don't forsake the assembling of the body. It's important. It's important for a reason, because when you have enough like-minded people seated and rooted in the truth, now you can fight me on the truth all day long. At the end of the day, we'll eventually agree to disagree, because there's no way that I know what I know. Once you've been plucked out of the matrix, once you can see, you never unsee what you've seen. You can't, because it is as much a part of you as it is in you.
It would be dishonest to try.
Oh man, I couldn't imagine. I mean,
well, that's the weirdest thing. Do you ever watch Tim Pool? Tim Pool, He is left. He's center left, which I can deal. I can deal with reasonable people on the left who just think more with their heart than their brains. And that's not an insult. I don't mean it that way. But so I agree. I enjoy seeing and hearing from somebody about today's news from that's slightly on that side.
Absolutely.
But
why?
But like 75. Go because I need to know what's going on.
Why would you go hang out with something that you detest? And I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about thought. Something that you detest so vilely against your existence. For me, it's abortion. Okay, if you let me give a caveat. If you've ever had an abortion, you're forgiven, ask, and receive. I don't judge you. It's not my place to judge.
You judge the act all day, not the person. The act.
Exactly, because I'm taking that act and I'm throwing it up against the Word of God to know what is right and what is wrong. So I'm not judging you. I want to know. I want the truth, and sometimes we don't always know exactly what that looks like, but there's a connectedness to it.
Well, far be it from me to think that I'm right 99% of the time. But it's always nice to have, because here's the thing, there's a bedrock foundation. Right? He believes in freedom of speech. He believes in being able to protect yourself, and we can agree with you. Basically, we agree on the Constitution as the big unifier of us, right? Tim Pool and I. But we differ on the details.
Sure.
And where it goes. I'm a God Christ-centered perspective. He's less, which is why I think he's more liberal. Which is but whatever. He's not. He's liberal. He's not a leftist. And he was talking about on his show. We have got to stop this. We've got to stop them tearing down statues. We've got to stop the lawlessness. We've got to stop the nonsense. We've got to come back to and it's like how we do it is people have got to start speaking out.
And I heard a study that was done, and I think Rick Green had mentioned it on today's show. That 84. Gosh, if I mess this up,
right, you're done.
Fix it later. We'll go back and edit.
Yeah,
but 84%.
Don't worry, it's not on, bro.
84%. And I don't know the poll. I don't know where it was. I like numbers. Numbers make sense. I listen to guys that I trust, so I take what they say on authority. If it seems a little off, hey, let's research it, let's bounce it off and figure it out, right?
Well, they have a proven track record, though, right? You're not just blindly following these guys.
That's exactly right.
And they didn't say they were the experts.
Right. They're saying, hey, this is the list, and that's accountable. He's accountable. What he's saying is accountable to what the list says.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So, anyway, 84% of respondents to this poll said that it was wrong. Like, don't tear down statues. Like, they should be treated like criminals. 84%.
Yeah, I saw that.
I know there ain't 84% of the population that's a conservative, right? Well, I'll get into that in just a minute about truth, right? But they just feel like that's not right. Silent majority don't usually speak up because conservatives don't want to fight. They believe what they believe, centered in what they perceive to be true, but they don't. And I'm going to go off into a rabbit hole and come back.
Here we go. Let's dive in.
Oh, man.
Get my red pill parachute.
They may not know God, which is fine. And that's not to say everybody that believes in God knows the truth. I think the people that know the truth that don't believe in God, which is fine. You can believe, the same. The concepts are the same. Where it comes from, how you see it, that's...
When you say truth, what do you mean? Like not the reality?
Oh, man, that's a good one.
Can you say someone can know the truth but not know God? Like, so we're not talking religiously. We're talking,
sure. All right. I'm not speaking this, but if I killed you just for the sake of killing you,
that would suck, bro.
That's murder.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a single person on this planet that would say, maybe he had a reason. Maybe they would.
Just to get the full story.
It was video, it's live.
Right? I might.
Everybody in the world saw it. Okay? We can all probably, nobody would do that. That has all their faculties, right? Because it's murder. We believe that's wrong. Why? It's morality. It's right. It's wrong. It has an absolute. Truth.
Yes.
Untruth. So they're believing in truth. Right? Why is it immoral to murder someone for no reason? You don't have a reason to do it. Because that's God's law.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I believe that.
I may not believe in God, but I believe it's murder is wrong. I believe in what God believes. Right? So there are people that believe true because... Well, all truth comes from God, and then those that don't. But they're not going to fight because they're not, the sinner is not there. If that makes sense. So they're going to stay silent.
Yeah, that's not good.
And so most conservatives, I believe, and it's just my opinion, so don't throw stones. I'm not holy, But I believe that 84%. Get back to the numbers. 84%. I know there ain't 84% Christians who believe in God, but they believe that, hey, you know what? That's wrong. Only 10%, the heathens. If you're a 10%er, I just called you a
Right?
heathen. The
No
10% said, yeah, tear them down. But what that tells you, you're not going to get 100% absolute on board, okay? There are people that are fueled by fire, but you can't argue those numbers. So here's another. Let me ask you. They fill in the skate parks in California. They throw sand in them.
Did they really?
Yeah, you didn't hear about that?
No, that sucks.
That was a while ago.
That's weak.
So
Here's a story that just backs up. A majority of voters said they believe statues of Confederate figures should remain standing despite nationwide calls. And standing or not, if the people want to take them down legally, then there's nothing.
there's a process
I would
for
never
that, isn't
stand
there?
in the way of that.
yeah, right,
If
exactly.
the people want that and they vote on it and they take them down, and the Republican, not a Democratic, but a Republican manner, because we live in a republic, not a democracy. I'm fine with that. But yeah,
Yeah.
so you're right. A majority of people, this is from the Hill.
Mm,
So yeah,
good. I'm glad you fact checked that because.
I didn't know. I don't know. Didn't get 84, but a majority is nonetheless.
Sure. So yeah, they fill in. They put sand in the skate parks, close down the beaches. California, right? What ended up happening? The younger generation, the younger crowd. No, they were like, because I mean, if you're 65, honestly, you're probably not skateboarding, right? So it's gonna be the younger crowd. They said no. We've had enough.
Do it, huh?
No, not do it. So they ran and they cleaned out the skate park so they could have a skate park. Why did they do that? Why? And they've been believing to think that. Well, when I say we, okay, home team, away team. Let's simplify it. I don't want to have to laundry list everything. The home team. So they assume that the home team wants to, take it away from them. But what they don't realize, they're confused. They want to be on the home team because they don't want their skate parks closed. They don't want the sand in there. Because what you're really saying is you're taking my freedom. And you're saying I'm taking your freedom because we got to.
Well, you're saying they filled the skate parks with sand so that the skaters couldn't to avoid
Social distancing. Yeah. Ooh, see how we would just rabbit. We went.
Scott, what are you doing to me?
I know.
Did you put me in this hole? You pushed me in this hole.
It's hard not
We're
to
gonna
talk
delve
about
deep.
it. It's an analogy.
There's a red alert, people. Get the red lights going.
So
yeah, but seriously, man. But that's a different subject for a different day.
it is.
Yeah, right.
It is.
And we'll
Podcast 2.
delve into that later. Let me get this.